What happens when one of the biggest names in football walks onto late night television expecting a friendly chat and instead gets blindsided by a host who seems more interested in humiliation than conversation? In just 39 seconds, a routine interview turned into one of the most explosive moments in talk show history, exposing a side of Jimmy Kimmel that viewers had never seen before. Travis Kelce walked onto that stage with his usual confidence, waving to the crowd, that signature smile on his face. The audience was electric, cheering for the tight end who had just helped lead his team to another incredible season. He sat down across from Kimmel, settling into the guest chair, ready for what he thought would be the usual back and forth. Light jokes, some football talk, maybe a funny story or two. That's how these things usually go. But something was different tonight. You could see it in Kimmel's eyes. There was an edge there, something sharp that didn't match his practiced smile. "Travis Kelce, everybody," Kimmel said to the crowd, his voice dripping with something that wasn't quite enthusiasm. The applause died down, and Travis leaned back, relaxed, waiting for the first question. "So Travis," Kimmel began, "let's talk about your season." Travis nodded. "Yeah, man, it's been incredible. The team really came together and—" "I'm sure it has," Kimmel cut him off, that strange smile still plastered on his face. "Must be nice having everything handed to you." The audience went quiet. Travis blinked, clearly confused. "I'm sorry, what?" "Oh, come on," Kimmel said, leaning forward. "You know what I'm talking about. The calls. The favoritism. Everyone sees it." Travis shifted in his seat. You could see him trying to process what was happening. "Jimmy, I don't know what you're getting at, but I work hard for everything I—" "Hard work," Kimmel interrupted again, practically spitting the words. "Is that what we're calling it now? See, I've been watching football for a long time, Travis. A long time. And I've never seen someone get away with half the stuff you get away with on that field." The audience was completely silent now. This wasn't banter. This wasn't a bit. This was something else entirely. Travis sat up straighter. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Jimmy, I think you might be confused about how the game actually works. Every call is reviewed. Every play is—" "Don't patronize me," Kimmel snapped. His face was reddening now, his composure slipping. "I know how the game works. What I'm saying is that you've built your entire career on getting special treatment. You think America doesn't see it? You think we're all stupid?" Travis took a deep breath. You could see him making a choice in that moment. He could get angry, he could fire back, but instead he stayed measured. "Look, I respect that everyone has opinions about the game, but to say that my career is built on special treatment is just not true. I've been playing since I was a kid. I've put in thousands of hours." "Oh, here we go," Kimmel rolled his eyes dramatically. "The sob story? Poor Travis Kelce had to work so hard. You want to talk about hard work? Let me tell you about hard work. I started in radio. Do you know what that's like? Do you have any idea how hard I had to grind to get where I am?" Travis stared at him. "Jimmy, I'm not trying to compete with you about who worked harder. I'm just saying that I earned my place in this league." "Earned," Kimmel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's rich. You earned it. Just like you earned that last touchdown catch where the defender was clearly held, but no flag was thrown. You earned that, right?" The audience was shifting uncomfortably now. Some people were looking at each other, confused. This wasn't what they came to see. Travis leaned forward. "If you've got a problem with officiating, take it up with the league. But don't sit here and tell me I haven't earned what I've accomplished. I show up every single day. I put my body on the line every single week. I study film. I practice. I work with my teammates. That's not luck. That's not favoritism. That's dedication." "Dedication," Kimmel repeated mockingly. "Is that what you call dating one of the biggest pop stars in the world? Really dedicated yourself to that publicity, didn't you?" And there it was, the real issue. Travis's face changed. Up until now, he'd been patient, trying to give Kimmel the benefit of the doubt, trying to keep things civil. But this was different. This was personal. "Now wait a minute," Travis said, his voice lower now, more serious. "My personal life has nothing to do with football, and it's definitely none of your business." "It's not my business?" Kimmel was almost yelling now. "You plaster it all over every magazine, every social media post, every camera you can find, but it's not my business? You've turned the sport into a circus." "Travis, a joke. Every game is about you. Every broadcast cuts to your girlfriend in the stands. You've made football about everything except football." Travis stood up, not aggressively, but firmly. He'd had enough. "First of all," Travis said, his voice steady but strong, "I don't control what cameras show during a broadcast. I don't choose what magazines write about. I play football. That's my job. That's what I do. And I do it well. If you've got a problem with media coverage, maybe look in the mirror, Jimmy. You're part of that media." Kimmel stood up too, facing Travis across the desk. "Don't you dare lecture me about media. I've been doing this for decades. I built this show from nothing. Me, not because of who I'm dating. Not because referees give me breaks. Because I'm talented." "And you don't think I'm talented?" Travis asked, his voice calm but cutting. "Is that what this is about? You don't think I deserve what I have?" "I think you're overrated," Kimmel shot back. "I think if you played for any other team, with any other quarterback, nobody would know your name. I think you're a product of circumstance who got lucky and is now coasting on fame you didn't earn." The audience gasped. This had gone way too far. Travis stood there for a moment, just looking at Kimmel. Then he nodded slowly. "You know what, Jimmy? I came here tonight to have a conversation, to talk about the game I love, to connect with fans, to have some fun. But clearly, you had a different agenda. Clearly, you brought me here to take shots at me, to tear me down, to make yourself feel bigger by making me feel small." "Oh, please," Kimmel said. "Don't play the victim." "I'm not playing anything," Travis replied. "I'm just stating facts. You invited me onto your show and then spent the entire time disrespecting me, disrespecting my career, disrespecting my personal life. And for what? What did you get out of this, Jimmy? You feel better now? You feel like a big man?" Kimmel's face was bright red now. "Get off my stage." "Gladly," Travis said, but he wasn't done. "You know what the difference is between you and me, Jimmy? When I step on that field, I lift my teammates up. I make the people around me better. I celebrate their successes. I don't tear them down to make myself look good. Maybe you should try that sometime." "I said get off my stage," Kimmel repeated, louder this time. "I'm going," Travis said, "but let me leave you with this. You can say whatever you want about me. You can question my talent. You can question my career. You can make up whatever narrative you want. But at the end of the day, I know what I've put into this game. My teammates know. My coaches know. The people who actually matter know. And that's enough for me." He started to walk off, then turned back one more time. "And one more thing," Travis added. "The people you just disrespected, my girlfriend, my team, my career, those are the things I'm proud of. Those are the things that matter to me. So if taking shots at them makes you feel important, that says a lot more about you than it does about me." Kimmel looked like he was about to explode. "You arrogant!" But Travis was already walking away. He didn't run. He didn't storm off. He just walked with his head high, past the band, past the cameras, straight toward the exit. The audience didn't know what to do. Some people started clapping. Then more joined in. Within seconds, the entire studio was applauding. Not for Kimmel, for Travis, for the way he handled himself, for the dignity he maintained even when someone was trying to strip it away. Kimmel stood there behind his desk, his face a mask of rage and humiliation, as the guest he'd tried to tear down walked out to a standing ovation. "Go to commercial," Kimmel hissed at his producers, but his microphone was still on. The whole audience heard it. "Go to commercial right now." But it was too late. The damage was done. In trying to make Travis Kelce look small, Jimmy Kimmel had only revealed his own insecurities, his own bitterness, his own inability to handle someone else's success with grace. As Travis pushed through the exit doors, you could still hear the applause echoing through the studio. The production assistants backstage looked shocked. Some of them nodded at Travis with respect as he walked past. One of them even said, "Good for you, man." Travis didn't respond. He just kept walking. Back in the studio, Kimmel was frantically whispering to his producers during the commercial break. "Cut that. We need to cut all of that before it airs." But one of the audience members was already posting about it online. Then another. Then another. Within minutes, social media was exploding with eyewitness accounts of what had just happened. The confrontation that Kimmel wanted to bury was already spreading like wildfire. In his dressing room, Travis sat down and exhaled slowly. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear or anger, but from adrenaline. He'd never experienced anything like that before. He'd been interviewed hundreds of times, appeared on countless shows, but he'd never been attacked like that on live television. His phone was already blowing up. His manager, his teammates, his family, everyone who'd heard what happened was reaching out. But Travis just sat there for a moment, letting it all sink in. He thought about walking back out there. He thought about demanding an apology. He thought about a lot of things. But then he realized something. He didn't need to do anything else. He'd said what he needed to say. He'd stood up for himself with class and dignity. Anything more would just be stooping to Kimmel's level. Meanwhile, back on stage, so Kimmel was trying to salvage the show. The commercial break ended, and he faced the cameras with a forced smile. "Well," he said, trying to laugh it off, that got a little heated there." But the audience wasn't laughing. They weren't even smiling. They just stared at him, waiting to see what he'd say next. "Look," Kimmel continued, "Travis and I, we just had a disagreement about football, and—" "You were way out of line," someone yelled from the audience. Kimmel froze. Audience members never yell out like that. Never. "Excuse me?" Kimmel said, trying to regain control. "You heard me," the voice came again. "That was disrespectful. He came here as your guest, and you attacked him." Other people in the audience started nodding, murmuring agreement. Kimmel's face went pale. This was his show, his studio, and his audience. And they were turning on him. "I think," Kimmel said slowly, "that we all need to remember that this is comedy. This is entertainment. Sometimes things get a little edgy, and—" "That wasn't edgy," another audience member called out. "That was just mean." The producers were scrambling now, trying to figure out how to salvage this disaster. They cut to the band, trying to create a distraction, trying to move on to the next segment. But the damage was irreversible. Travis, sitting in his dressing room, could hear bits and pieces of what was happening through the monitor on his wall. He shook his head. Part of him felt bad for Kimmel. Part of him wanted to believe that this was all some misunderstanding, some miscommunication. But deep down, he knew the truth. Kimmel had meant every word. The host had brought him on that show with the intention of tearing him down, and it had backfired spectacularly. A knock came at the dressing room door. It was one of the show's producers, a young woman who looked absolutely mortified. "Travis," she said quietly, "I'm so sorry. That should never have happened. We had no idea he was going to—" Travis held up his hand, stopping her. "It's not your fault. You didn't know." "Is there anything we can do?" she asked. "Anything at all?" Travis thought about it for a moment, then shook his head. "No, I think I'm just going to head out." "Of course," she said. And again, we're all so sorry." As Travis gathered his things and prepared to leave the studio, he could still hear Kimmel trying to salvage the show, trying to make jokes, trying to move on, trying to pretend like nothing had happened. But you can't put toothpaste back in the tube. You can't unsay words once they've been spoken. And you can't treat someone with such blatant disrespect and expect there to be no consequences. Travis walked out of the studio building into the cool night air. Camera flashes went off immediately. Paparazzi, who'd somehow already heard about what happened, were waiting outside, shouting questions. "Travis, what happened in there? Are you going to press charges? What did Kimmel say to you?" Travis didn't answer any of them. He just walked to his car, got in, and drove away. Inside the studio, Kimmel was wrapping up his show. Or trying to. His jokes were falling flat. His timing was off. The energy in the room was completely dead. This was supposed to be a celebration. A fun night of entertainment. Instead, it had turned into one of the most uncomfortable hours of television anyone in that room had ever witnessed. When the show finally ended and the cameras stopped rolling, Kimmel didn't stick around for his usual post-show routine. He didn't talk to the audience, didn't thank his staff, didn't do any of the normal things he always did. He just walked straight to his dressing room and slammed the door. His producers looked at each other nervously. They knew this was bad. Really bad. They'd all seen viral moments before, clips that took on a life of their own online. But this was different. This wasn't a funny blooper or an awkward moment. This was their host completely losing control and attacking a guest for no apparent reason. In the following hours, as Travis drove home, his phone continued to blow up. Messages of support poured in from all over. Fellow athletes, celebrities, fans, everyone seemed to be on his side. Not because he'd asked for their support, but because they'd witnessed what happened and recognized it for what it was. An unprovoked attack by someone who should have known better. Travis finally pulled over and started reading some of the messages. His teammates were fired up, ready to defend him. His coaches were proud of how he handled himself. His family was concerned, but supportive. And perhaps most tellingly, other people who'd appeared on Kimmel's show before were reaching out privately, sharing their own stories of uncomfortable moments, of feeling disrespected, of sensing that same underlying hostility that had exploded tonight. It painted a picture of a host who'd been getting away with this kind of behavior for years, hidden behind the veneer of comedy and entertainment. But tonight, with Travis, he'd finally gone too far. He'd finally picked on someone who wouldn't just sit there and take it, someone who had the courage to stand up and walk away. Travis thought about all of this as he sat in his car. He thought about how easily he could have lost his temper, how he could have yelled back, how he could have made the situation even worse. But he hadn't. He'd stayed calm, stated his case, and removed himself from a toxic situation. And in doing so, he'd shown more maturity and professionalism than the man who was supposed to be the experienced television host. The next morning would bring even more attention. The clip would go viral. News outlets would dissect every word. Think pieces would be written. But in that moment, sitting in his car in the quiet darkness, Travis just felt tired. Tired of having to prove himself. Tired of dealing with people who wanted to tear him down. Tired of the constant scrutiny that came with success. But he also felt something else. Pride. Not arrogant pride, but the quiet pride that comes from knowing you did the right thing. From knowing you stood up for yourself without losing yourself in the process. From knowing that when someone tried to make you small, you refused to shrink. Back at the studio, the staff was already in crisis mode. Calls were being made to publicists, to lawyers, to network executives. Everyone knew that this wasn't going to just blow over. This was going to be a major story. And in how they handled it in the next 24 hours would determine whether it was just a bad night or a career-defining disaster. Kimmel, alone in his dressing room, stared at himself in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, he didn't like what he saw staring back at him. The bravado was gone. The confidence was shaken. In trying to prove something, he wasn't even sure what. He'd revealed parts of himself he'd kept hidden for years. The jealousy, the bitterness, the resentment toward people whose success seemed to come easier than his own. He'd spent his entire career building a reputation as the funny guy, the likable host, the person celebrities wanted to hang out with. And in one interview, one spectacularly bad decision to let his ego take control, he'd potentially destroyed all of that. His phone rang. It was his publicist. He didn't answer. It rang again. His executive producer. He ignored it. It kept ringing. The network. His agent. His manager. Everyone wanted answers. Wanted to know what he was thinking. Wanted to do damage control. But Kimmel just sat there, staring at that mirror, realizing that there was no easy fix for this. You can't walk back disrespect. You can't apologize your way out of showing your true colors. All you can do is own it and hope that people are willing to forgive. Meanwhile, Travis made it home. He walked into his house, finally alone, finally away from cameras and crowds and chaos. He sat down on his couch and just breathed. The adrenaline was finally wearing off, replaced by exhaustion. His phone buzzed one more time. A text from a fellow player who'd been watching live. "Man, the way you handled that was incredible. You made all of us proud tonight." Travis smiled for the first time since walking off that stage. Maybe some good would come from this after all. Maybe his example of staying calm under fire, of refusing to be provoked into anger, of maintaining dignity when someone was trying to strip it away, maybe that would mean something to someone out there who needed to see it. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if Kimmel would apologize, if the network would respond, if this would blow up even bigger or fade away. But what he did know was that he'd stayed true to himself. He'd represented his team, his family, and his values in the way they deserved to be represented. And at the end of the day, that was all that really mattered. Not the headlines, not the viral clips, not the opinions of people who didn't know him, just the knowledge that when tested, when pushed, when someone tried to make him compromise who he was, he'd refused. He'd walked away with his head high and his integrity intact. That night, as Travis finally got ready for bed, he thought about all the young kids who might have been watching. Kids who looked up to him, who wore his jersey, who dreamed of being like him someday. He hoped they saw what happened. Not the confrontation itself, but how he handled it. He hoped they learned that strength isn't about fighting back with anger. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. He hoped they learned that success will always attract critics. People who want to tear you down because your achievements make them feel inadequate about their own. And he hoped they learned that the best response to that kind of negativity isn't to engage with it on its level, but to rise above it, to stay focused on what matters, and to never let someone else's insecurity become your problem. As he turned off the lights and settled into bed, Travis felt at peace. Tomorrow would be chaos. There would be interviews to decline, statements to potentially make, conversations to have with his team and his representatives. But tonight, he could rest, knowing that he'd done exactly what he should have done. He'd stood up for himself without tearing someone else down. He'd defended his dignity without losing his composure. He'd shown that real strength isn't about domination or aggression. It's about self-control and self-respect. And somewhere across town, in his own home, Jimmy Kimmel lay awake, unable to sleep, replaying the entire disaster in his mind, wondering how it all went so wrong, and beginning to understand that sometimes the person you hurt most when you try to hurt someone else is yourself.